Hello, and thank you for choosing the Legacy Lawyers as your source of information. We know this might be a difficult time you're going through, but we are here to educate you and help you through the process. Please stay tuned for our question and answer portion.
Good morning, Aaron.
Good morning, David. How was your commute in this morning?
It was long, but I had an audiobook going, so...
Never thought about that. That's a great idea.
Yes, it helps.
Can imagine.
Greatly.
Okay, so for the next few weeks, we're going to be talking about trusts.
Mm-hmm.
So something that I always found really important, what are the duties of a trustee?
Okay. It can be a little confusing when someone is the trustee and the beneficiary at the same time. This is generally speaking what happens when someone creates a trust during their lifetime, and they're the initial trustee. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use an example of a trustee who's not the beneficiary. So let's just say we're dealing with a trust and it's being administered after the person who created the trust dies. So now there are two kids and there's a third-party trustee, like let's just say an aunt or uncle. That trustee has the duty to administer the trust under its terms. That means to follow whatever instructions are in the trust. They have a duty to administer the assets in a way that is appropriate. Generally speaking, that means to make property productive. So if there are income-producing apartment buildings, they have a duty to keep that property productive and continue having renters, or to move cash into at least interest-bearing accounts. They have a duty to not use the trust for their own purpose. So, for example, if the aunt, her duties as trustee is to administer these trust assets for the kids, but she's going through a foreclosure on her own property, she can't just say, well, I have access to these funds and I'm going to take my own property out of default by using these. I'm going to loan myself some money and I'll pay it back later. They can't do that. They also have to exercise a duty of impartiality. So that means that they have to administer the trust in an objective and impartial way. They can't say, well, the son, I've always very much enjoyed his company, but the daughter of the deceased person who created the trust hasn't really been close to me. Always kind of gave me the cold shoulder. And the daughter, who is now in some trouble financially, has a legitimate need for these assets, ask me for money, and I say, well, you haven't really been nice, and I always kind of have the impression that you're lazy. You need to have a stiff upper lip and go aggressively find a job and pull yourself out of this. This trust wasn't intended to be a golden parachute. While the son says, well, I'd like to go to, nothing against art school, but, oh, you know what, I'd like to try my hand at being a professional surfer. That didn't work, so now I'm going to go to art school, and the tuition is $50,000 a year, and I'd like to go. And the aunt says, well, whatever you want. So that's not really being impartial. So they have a duty to manage the trust assets prudently, a duty to not use the trust for their own purpose, and a duty to administer the trust in a way that is productive, and they have a duty to disclose information. So, for example, if the son or daughter says auntie or uncle or pop, I very much would like to have an idea as to how these assets are being managed. I'd like to know how much in assets there are and what type of growth or other type of strategies being utilized. And Pop says, well, you know what, I'm trustee and I'm in charge, so buzz off. That is a violation of duty to report information. So that will be a breach of a duty. So a trustee truly is someone, and it gets blurred when one of the beneficiaries is also the trustee, or when the person who's entitled to the trust assets during lifetime is a trustee, and also in the situation where a family member who has all of this intangible, historical, feeling-based knowledge of the children, tries to do their best based on their impressions and not what's in the trust, that gets very blurry. So when you want to look at what a trustee is supposed to do, it's best to look at it based on the concept of, this is going to be a neutral outside person. What would you expect of this non-related outside person to do in administering the trust? And it's all very common sense based, but they are duties. And that is what a trust is supposed to do, is to administer the trust solely for the benefit of the beneficiaries using these guidelines and rules.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And if you guys have any additional questions, feel free to email us at smm@thelegacylawyers.com. Have a great day.